Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are tuning in to listen. This is the fourth episode of Techs of the Roundtable. This week, I am joined by some good friends of mine, Shane Betrix and Ramon Smith. These gentlemen have been a part of my life and my career for quite a while. I first met them when I was working at my last managed service provider here in San Diego. I'm going to give them a second here to introduce themselves, and we're gonna dive into some fun stories this week. Dane, why don't you go ahead and give yourself an introduction?
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it. My name is Shane Betrix, founder of NetOps Africa. I've been working with MSPs, within MSPs and internal IT for the last 20 years. So I'll hand over to Ramon.
Hey there, my name is Ramon, and before kids, I used to introduce myself as somebody that was a pilot, loved water skiing, snow skiing, motorcycles, dirt bikes. But since having kids, most adrenaline I get is fighting crowds at like SeaWorld and the zoo. But besides that, I've been in nursing home administrator, helped run an IT company, software company, been all over the place. And so I've really had a lot of wide range of experiences.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Welcome to the show. Uh, Now you guys have just started or actually you've been running a company called NetOps Africa, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. But to get started up, I wanted to first start about mentoring in tech, and some stories from mentoring in tech, because Shane here has been a strong mentor of mine for the past 7 years. He was my direct boss at my last MSP, and we have many stories, most of which are embarrassing for me. But I know that we wanted to get this one kicked off with a particular story, which was right around the time when you were coming into leadership, Shane, right as you were taking over and really becoming my boss.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Anthony. First things first on mentorship and leadership. Ramon was my mentor for a while as well, and he was my boss, right? So I want to talk about that. And it's funny how things go full circle. The way I look at mentorship or even being a mentee is no matter what side of that you're on, you're always learning from someone, right? So, Anthony, I've learned a lot from you. Ramon, I've learned a lot from you, and I'm sure you both learned a lot from me, right? It's
But yeah,
not a one-way relationship when it's a mentor-mentee. So I wanted to kind of highlight that. Always be open to learning from anyone, no matter what level they are.
no,
And that's something I've
exactly.
covered.
Yeah,
So
no, you're 100% right there, and I'm glad that you took a second to stop there as well, because just to rewind a little bit, obviously we're all mentors and mentees on this call. Before we dive into the story, let's actually why is that so important? Why is mentoring or being a mentee so important in the technology field?
from my perspective, like nobody knows everything, right? Like I've met so many people in the industry over the years, and every single person I've met has something to add, some value add. I've learned, little tips and tricks from people just getting into IT because they're fresh, they have fresh eyes. And those tips and tricks I wouldn't have come to on my own, right? Like, and it helped me in my day to day solve problems. So, some people have a closed mind to learning, especially people that think of themselves as leaders or as mentors. They feel like they're done. They haven't. Um, they're done learning, and I think that's a dangerous mindset, right?
Mhm.
We learn something new every day. So keep an open mind. Make sure that you're learning from everyone. Everyone has something to offer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ramon, what's your take on that?
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree on that. I think through the awesome events that I've been through over the years, um, I think it reminds me of what we talked about before, called something that I've heard in a book. I think the author's name is Mike. Um, can't think of his last name, but it's called The Pumpkin Plan. Um, and it's really about focusing on strengths. And I'm sure we can dive into that concept a little bit later. But I think leadership, mentorship, um, really attempts to help people focus on where their strengths are and build those up. Obviously, we've all got weaknesses, and I think that's where a team kind of comes in. You have to lean on the strengths of others to round out your team and fill in those weaknesses.
Yeah,
100% agree. Yeah.
absolutely. And mentoring in tech and in cyber, it is so critical for progression, for learning, for growth. Uh, I can't, like seven or eight mentors that I have currently that I talk to regularly, and I'm mentoring another 6 or 7 individuals currently as well, and it is one of the best ways where you can really move forward and jump ahead in your career in tech and cyber is through good mentorship. It's giving you the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of your mentor and build on their successes so that you can continue to see greater and greater successes. That's the whole point. I want those that I mentor to grow to be more successful, and more established in the industry than I ever will be. And
You surpass me. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's a yeah. There's a sign of a bad leader as well, and a bad mentor in some cases. And I've seen it over my career where they use verbiage like it's lonely at the top, right? Well, it's only lonely at the top if you keep people down. It's not lonely at the top if you bring people up with you and help their success. So I learned that a long time ago with some, in my opinion, some rougher or uninformed leaders. Um, and yeah, I want to make what is, I think Simon Sinek says it best, right? Like you are not, um, you're responsible for the people in your charge. You're not in charge of them. And I love that. And I try to live that, right? It's hard to adhere to some of these things, but I try to remind myself of those things every day. Like I'm responsible for the people in my charge. That's it. My job is to make them grow.
yeah, well, and you really hit on a point there, and I'm going to loop this back to a book that I know that you're well accustomed to, Ramon. I'm interested to hear if you've read this book, what your take is. But the levels of leadership by
C.
Andrew
Maxwell,
Maxwell,
Yeah.
John
or
C. Maxwell.
John C. Maxwell. Sorry.
I'm fully familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my North Star books. I know that Shane, you've read it at least a couple times at this point. And what that book really talks about is there are 5 levels of leadership. Really, coming to the ultimate level, the
Pinnacle.
level 5 leader, pinnacle leader. Thank you. Uh, which is a leader that develops other leaders that go on to develop other leaders. That is the pinnacle of leadership, is that your mentorship, your leadership style is developing those underneath you so that they can come to do the same thing that you're doing currently. And that's something that I really align with, and I think it's just so critical really across the board. I think that this could be applied across industry, but it has a particular home I found in the tech and cyberspace. Ramon, what do you think about that?
Yeah, 100% on that for sure. That's I remember. I don't know, Shane. How many times did I mention that book when we were working together? And what I love about it is that it's not something that's all inclusive. Like you're at one stage um, for everybody. It's very individual. You can walk into a room and not know anybody, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
starting over from the beginning, from
You're level one.
level one, right? Yeah, and sometimes you're even kind of before level one. Nobody even knows who you are. You don't even have the position or title to start, and so you kind of got to work um, with individuals and with groups at the stage that you are with them, and kind of progress beyond to each level and each step. And I think that's a big thing to remember. I think sometimes people might let the position or title uh, kind of live greater than they are, and they kind of lean on that. But I think if everybody's pushing past that and trying to get to know individuals, trying to learn their strengths, trying to learn where everybody fits, then you can get so much further, so much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Another
couldn't agree.
takeaway on that, Anthony, is what I've seen, especially with a lot of the newer techs in the industry, right? They don't feel like they're so driven for the title, right? That's all they're after. And what they're not realizing is you don't need the title to inflict change. right? So most people, if you read the 5 levels of leadership, the level 1 is that title, right? Is the
Positional leadership.
original leadership. Thank you. Um, you don't need that to inflict change. You can act as a level 2, which is a permissional leader, right? You can be the leader to someone else, even if you don't have the title. And you can, if you're a tier 1 and you want to be a tier 2, act like a tier 2. Be a tier 2. You don't need the title for it yet. Earn that. It'll come. But don't chase it for the sake of chasing it, right? People feel like they're stuck and they're like, I'm just a level 1. I can't do anything. I say, yeah, you can. Take the initiative. Show people that you're not just a level 1. You don't need the title for that.
Exactly. And I want to separate out here as well, because we did talk about titles in one of the previous podcast episodes. This is separating out impact versus career progression. So here, you don't need the title to have an impact, to lead, to take care of those around you. That is what you should be doing if you want to be a good team player, if you want to be a strong leader just in general. Where I pull out a little bit of a separation there is in chasing titles, but for growth and job opportunity as well. And that's kind of what we spoke about in a previous podcast, where titles really do matter. Titles are important externally. Internally, they're a little bit less important because it's about how you carry yourself internal to whatever organization that you're at and how you lead there. But when you're in your career and you're chasing towards a goal, a long-term goal that you want to hit, maybe it's a certain position or a certain salary or a certain level of organization that you might be a part of. In some aspects, chasing titles is important, but it shouldn't. Just like Ramon said, I really like what you had said there, Ramon, was the title. Either the title is living bigger than they are. And it's the important piece with that is when you get a title, it's not just the title. It's to lead, it's to live up to that title, to lead with a full embodiment of that position. And if you just lean on your title because I have this title and I'm the leader, well then yep. If you ever have to say I'm the boss,
yeah, there's a
that's
problem.
that's a big problem.
If you start your conversation with because I'm this title, there's a problem. Yeah, why?
That reminds me of a couple of other books. One of them is called Multipliers by Liz Weissman, I think. It's the idea there's growing true leaders rather than relying on authority, and you want to multiply people rather than maybe relying on the authority and diminishing others. I'm the boss obviously comes across a little more diminishing. But the other one that kind of comes to mind is it's also, I think, Maxwell's Law of the Lid or something like that. The 2021 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Yep.
Similar thing there. Leadership ability determines your level of effectiveness. Titles don't raise that leadership lid. Growing your influence does. And that's a huge factor there that all of this is circling around.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about embodying the type of leader that you want to be, not relying or leaning on some label of authority.
Yep, totally.
Now, in the same conversation, as Shane was growing really into my mentor in my last MSP, we had some fun stories that we encountered, and situations where Shane really got to flex those leadership skill sets with me and help me develop further. I think you had one of those that is, I'm gonna be a little embarrassed on this podcast, but
we won't go into too much. Yeah. So, I mean, this was around the time I was still trying to define what I wanted to be as a leader, right? Because that's the trick. Like I'm always trying to learn. We've mentioned a ton of books. I've read most of them, and I will continue to do so because I'm always striving to be better and better as a leader. I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone is, and anyone that thinks they are, they're wrong. But at the time, so I mean, you were very early on in your career. I think you were 19 years old at the time.
I was at this point. I think I was 20. I just joined up with the MSP, and I was like, still pretty green.
Yeah, I gotcha. And yeah, so what happened, and I'll kind of tell what happened, and then what my mindset was around what happened and how I chose to handle it in that moment. Um, so what happened, Anthony, is as you know, you're working on a client system. You're trying to help them with um, releasing some spam or tweaking their spam filters. And what ended up happening, short story, is you basically you turned off all the spam filters and opened up everything to them for that client, right? So they just got bombarded with the worst stuff from the internet almost immediately, and that client was very unhappy. From a back end perspective, when that went down, I was approached by a couple different people that were calling for blood, right? They were very unhappy. The client was unhappy, and people that were affected really wanted someone's head. Now, knowing you, and at that time, here's what I saw. I saw a very energetic, very passionate a passionate person within IT that was very early on in their career. And one of the things I thought through in that moment was, okay, I've got a couple ways I can deal with this. I can reprimand this person. Um, I can write them up. I can fire them. I mean, it was that egregious at the time. Um, I can take all different measures of I can't think of the word now. Um, I can take a lot of different actions. The action that I chose to take was obviously to sit with you and hear out what happened first, right? See if I could figure out what was going on. The second thing I chose to do is, Anthony, you're very good at recognizing your mistakes, owning up to them, and working hard to fix them. So we sat down and we worked hard to fix. That's the first thing. Let's solve the problem first. Once the problem was solved, we then talked about how it happened and how we can prevent it in the future. And during that process, what I recognized is that you were beating yourself up a lot, right? You were in your head, you were going at yourself, and I recognized in that moment that it would, for someone as early on in their career and with as much passion as you had, you were down. If I kicked you while you were down, there was a chance you might not get up, or at least not be the same afterwards, right? So what I chose to do is guide you through it instead of reprimanding you, and I think it worked, right? I mean, the proof's in the pudding. But um, for me, it was, we're all going to make mistakes. I've made plenty in my career. I don't think any of us on here or anyone out there can say that they've never made a mistake. It's not about the mistake. It's taking ownership, taking accountability, apologizing where necessary, and fixing the problem, right? And being humble enough to know that you're not perfect and you're going to make mistakes and you need help from others.
No, absolutely. And I still remember, like, as clear as day, me setting the rule that caused all the issues. I remember where I was. I can literally see my screen as I was doing it 7 years ago. And this, it, in that moment, and for the technical listeners out there, I set an any rule on their spam filter. So literally turned off spam filtering.
Mm.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, that was one of my earliest big mistakes that I've had plenty since then. But I really did feel it. I was worried I that I had upset the client, that I had done some damage to the relationships. And in that moment, I was really glad that I had Shane as my boss, and that he chose to handle it and approach it the way that he did. I did learn quite a bit from that. And from my perspective, after we had kind of gone through our conversations, one of my next steps was to go to that client that I had done this to, walk into the CEO's office, and offer my sincerest apologies for causing the issue and the disruption. That CEO was also a very strong leader, and she appreciated that I took ownership and accountability and that I came and I apologized hat in hand. And from there, actually, I became one of that client's primary engineers. So it just goes to show that the way that you chose to handle that, Shane, and guide me through it, that led to an even better result than I wonder if we would have gotten without that, because we had that adversity and had that opportunity to show, no, that we were going to take accountability when it mattered.
Absolutely. Um, so many times in my career, right? We've all made mistakes. It's how you handle it, right? We're going to make mistakes, and that's why we focus so much on building rapport with our clientele,
Mm-hmm.
right? The soft skills that we all learn in the tech field are vitally important because things will go down, right? Accidents will happen. Um, and that's something that I think all three of us learned a long time ago is building that rapport, building those relationships becomes one of your bigger tasks, right? I would almost say tech is 80% customer service, 20% technical.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big swing, but especially in the MSP space. Right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that that really just goes to show at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all going to make mistakes, and the clients are humans too. If you build the relationship with them, if you build that rapport and you also take that accountability, they build that trust with them. That's how you build out those better relationships. And thank you, Shane, for all of your guidance over the years, but also through that helped me kind of get through that with my job intact. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah. I'd do it
um,
again.
yeah, well, I hope so because it definitely worked out, and I think that was definitely one of your successes, which is also really impressive because that was right when you were becoming the manager, right when you were stepping into a leadership role. So you already had some of those innate leadership. Yeah, that came from you. That showed some of your just pure innate leadership talent before you had a lot of time to really develop out those leadership skills, which have it's been crazy because I've gotten to see you grow as a mentor throughout my career as I've just been growing as a person, as I've been growing through my career. And that's been really cool to see as you've also ranked up and leveled up your capabilities. Now, that is a prime example of why making mistakes in IT is important. Like I said, I literally can see where I was making the mistake to this day, and I've never made that mistake again. It really stuck with me. Now, on this same point of leadership, though, you also leaned into a lot of the areas where you felt like I had strength. A lot of that, I'm a very energetic person. I can talk with people fairly easily. So you put me in positions where I was really playing to some of those strengths and getting to utilize and build out those skill sets further, which really tracks along with one of the story that Ramon had brought up a little bit earlier. What was it? The pumpkin plan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You told me this story a while back, and I just thought it was so great in this context. Why don't you explain that out for our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then feel free to add some more color where there's where I might be missing something. But I mean, the whole idea is behind that. The pumpkin plan um, really comes from those people that are bring these huge, enormous pumpkins to these shows, and they win. They're just enormous, the size of like Volkswagen bugs, and they're just ridiculous. Um, but the idea is that the farmers grow these giant pumpkins by focusing all of their resources on the strongest vine and then applying a lot of the same stuff that we've talked about, same logic to business growth. And I think so. Like, if you want a business to thrive, like a giant prize winning pumpkin, right, you need to start with identifying your best pumpkins, your top clients, products, services. When you're working with people, you got to find those strengths that really stand out, things that really make them unique. And just like farmer, you kind of keep fostering those bigger strengths along and continuing to grow those and redirecting the nutrients. And then you intentionally let go of some of those smaller little pumpkins. Those might be some, obviously we want to always work on some weaknesses and kind of boost those up a little bit, but uh, a lot of the focus goes to strengths and building those up. Nobody, like Shane said earlier, nobody is perfect at everything. If you could point somebody out that literally can be all things to all people, I really want to meet them. That would be phenomenal. But you can, more often than not, um, people recognize that they just aren't super strong in a certain area, and they come to realize that that's okay. And then they hire people or they work with people, they partner with people to help fill in that gap. So hopefully
Yeah,
that gives you what you were talking about there.
no, absolutely. And this represents a little bit of a uh, thinking shift. I think for a lot of people, first time I heard about it definitely represented that for me, because what I've thought about going through my career is, and with all of the different teams I've worked on and led as well, is, hey, we have these strengths. It's important to know and play to our strengths, but has more of a focus on building up the weaknesses, on developing those out. And whereas this perspective is more on play to the strengths, lean into the strengths. We all have our weaknesses, but that's really where the team dynamic comes in. So that's where you put it in someone else. So if I'm weak in one area of tech, well, okay, well, let's bring someone in that's a specialist there, and then I can do what I'm strongest in, and this other individual can do what they're strongest in, and in doing so, we've created that full coverage.
And you're learning from each other, right? So that then you talk about the mentor mentee. It's like anyone can be a mentor and a mentee. If you put a team together where you are leveraging everyone's strengths and partnering people, you know, my weakness with Ramon's strength, right? Now we're both learning from each other, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll feel like, some of my strengths are some of his weaknesses, right? And that's perfect. So now we can, yes, he can take care of that in the moment, but now I'm also learning from him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that there's a concept that I've heard. I don't know where it comes from, but like focusing on your zone of genius. Um, so your most meaningful growth comes from doubling down on your unique strengths. So, for example, if you're great at vision strategy, but maybe mediocre at the operations, um, empower someone to help you with those operations, or to totally fill in that operational gap, and stay focused on scaling that impact, and then the other person stay focused on the vision and strategy and kind of overall direction. Something like that, bringing those kind of groups together, is that's what creates that well-rounded team that become these enormous companies.
This is only for people that are humble enough to recognize
Right.
their weaknesses, right? That's, you got some people out there that can't, but if
Mhm.
you're humble enough to say, "Hey, this is an area I struggle with," and you can surround yourself with people that have those strengths, then you're better than most.
Yeah, having humility in, especially in tech, is so important because things are, one, changing so quickly. So if you're not being humble and learning constantly, you're very much falling behind. And also, there's something to be said about humility in a team. And it makes the team more cohesive when everyone knows that they're there to learn, that they have their gaps, and that their gap is, potentially covered by someone else on the team that they could also learn from. This brings back a story from the MSP days of my buddy and my teammate. His name's Zach. We were on a team together, and it was just he and I for about 3 month stretch there. And we had, I think, 20, 25 clients at the time. It was a large number of clients that we were covering. In that setup, we had more work than we could reasonably get done. But the way that we found most effective was Zach. He's a wizard. He is one of those people where you can put just about any technical problem in front of him and he's going to find a solution. He's also a person that would prefer to be that wizard where you just throw a ton of problems at him and he just gives you solutions. And so in that setup, I took the role of more doing the working on the relationships, the account management, working with the clients, being the voice of the team essentially, and consulting with them, while he was in the back banging out these incredible technical solutions.
That's
That I think is a great example.
Yep, that also reminds me. Shane's going to probably remember this. So Shane and I worked really well together. He um, really could get to build those relationships with all the engineers, and I started focusing more on the kind of back end business and strategy, and looking at the metrics, and trying to figure out how we could improve our margins and where we could tweak things. And one of the things that came up was onboarding. And I was talking to Shane about the numbers and where we stood, and I was like, if we can get this onboarding down to the point where ideally you just pull out of a box and hit go and then walk away, like we'd be done. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I know who to talk to about that. Um, and
And so
and it happened.
this, yeah, and this for clarity, you're talking about onboarding of medical facilities, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
Any
this
onboarding, but yeah.
was
But a lot
the
of other
managed
things
server.
too.
Yeah, yeah, well, exactly. Onboarding of companies as well to our managed service provider. So yeah, just for that clarity there, when you're a managed service provider, outsourced IT, you're working with clients, you're performing IT for them. When you initiate that engagement, there's always an onboarding process. You have to learn their IT systems. You have to help them get some things updated. Maybe you have to integrate them with some of your tool sets. And so that was a big thing that we had to do when we were all working together, onboard these clients. And in that space, we were also doing a lot of medical facilities. So we were onboarding a lot of medical facilities. And that was definitely a friction point because there was a lot of work to do. And it took a minute to really dial in and make that process super efficient.
Totally. Yeah. And I remember onboarding a group of 13 individual locations all at once, or somewhere around that number. And it was definitely the most that we'd ever done in one go. And multi-million dollar project for sure. And multiple states across the country. And that was magic how that unfolded. It was beautiful the way it happened. And it was a lot due to Shane, his coordination, leadership there. Zach, I think you were involved in that, so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of cool stuff came from that.
Those are good times.
Well, and it was all about, you guys had taken, they playing to each other's strengths. Ramon, you were doing some of that vision work, some of the back end analysis as well. Shane, you were leading, and then also filtered that down to the teams that you were working with, and made sure that you were putting the individuals on each team in the right position for the project, so that you had the best chances of success.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
those are good times. Yeah, and I mean, still a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And it again, it was never perfect, right? And we were still always tweaking it to try and make it better and better because we never got it to that. I don't think you'll ever get it to that perfect point.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, we got it to a point where it got a lot better and it made a lot more sense, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's also something that we have tried to bring into NetOps is trying to, like, it's not just throwing out a request for somebody to come work for a client. We have to really find the match there. And I think because of our history and experience, it's maybe comes a little bit easier for us. But we're not the kind that's going to have a bench of people that are just plug and play. Right. You really need to find the right culture fit, the right skills, and you can't just find a body and put it in the place and say go, right? Because then you could run into a whole lot of trouble that way. And
Yeah.
clients
E-
aren't going to be happy about that.
exactly. Exactly. And you beat me to my segue, Ramon. But you guys are applying this dynamic and playing to each other's strengths still in your latest venture, NetOps Africa. So why don't you give me a little rundown of what NetOps Africa is doing? What's your guys' main purpose? And we'll talk about that a bit.
Yeah. Do you mind if I start with kind of the why we started NetOps Africa?
Hey, you always start with the why.
There we go. Right. Oh, dude, look at that plug. You're gonna have to. Yep. Good. Give him credit. You don't want to get this.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
yeah.
call.
Right. Yeah. That's from Simon Sinek.
Um, so in the MSP space, I mean, there's a couple reasons and a couple things that came together. The reason why I started NetOps Africa. Um, first and foremost, and Ramon and I struggled with this for a while, and we did really well with it, but it was a struggle, and that was managing margins within an MSP, right? That was kind of the first tipping point, right? Figuring out how to align with best in class constantly, without destroying the team, right? Without beating the, because you can do it if you make your people work all the time. Um,
Well, we worked plenty at
I
that
get it,
last
right?
MSP.
So, but then you have burnout and you have people that are unhappy, and we tried our best to make sure everyone was taken care of, but you still had that, right? So, and then we looked at, kind of one of the big issues that came up was around after hours, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of our first little test was, we didn't when you have on call and after hours, in some models, it goes directly to your technical talent, and they pick up the phone at 2 in the morning after being asleep for whatever. And I used to do that. We've all done it here. I got really good at answering the phone at 2 in the morning, and having a conversation with someone and not remembering it. My wife was like, you had a full conversation with someone and you were like completely articulate. And I was like, I have no recollection of that call. It's kind of scary. So what we did is before NetOps started, we first tried it with kind of an answering system, right? Where we had a company that would answer the calls. Triage is a strong word there. They would literally just take notes, and then they would send the ticket off and wake up a technical person. And what it worked to a certain degree, but what failed was if they, because it was a service, so it was a rotating group of people. We had no ownership and we had no account. We couldn't hold them accountable, right? We couldn't
Mm-hmm.
train them properly. We couldn't hold them accountable. We couldn't make them better. And we couldn't get them to do what we needed them to do in that specific situation. So it was a bit of a failed experiment. And that's where kind of we tested out NetOps. And what we did is we brought in a couple of individuals to cover that overnight shift, whether it's 3 or 4, whatever. I think it was 108 hours a week. And we trained them, we put them in place. They started taking the calls, they started learning the clients. They made mistakes, right? And we were able to correct them and train them on how to do it the right way. And then over time, things got better. The clients got used to that, and um, they liked having a warm body to talk to in the middle of the night when something went down, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
those people taking the calls would then reach out to the engineering team, and it's a much easier way to wake up when it's your teammate calling you
Mm-hmm.
versus a client. So that worked. So that's kind of how it quickly got started. And then, the reason why, I don't know if you know Anthony, I'm sure you do because I say it all the time. I think I gave our buddy Kyle a plaque. Uh, I'm from South Africa, right? So I live here, but I'm from there, and I love both countries. And I saw that South Africa was struggling, and it still is. Currently, South Africa has around a 40% unemployment rate,
Mm-hmm.
and it in 18 to 35-year-olds, it has a 62% unemployment rate, which is
Mm-hmm.
devastating, right? So you've got a country of people where they still have kind of the old school values where, right out of high school, you're going to college, you're learning something, you're getting a degree. So you've got a highly trained, highly skilled um, population, um, with not a lot of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at that, and with my business partner that actually lived there, we decided to go full bore on this. Like, we decided to help where we can. So it's a mutually beneficial uh, engagement where, yes, we can help MSPs work on their margins. We can help them get good talent in, whether it's, they have a skills gap, we can bring that in. Whether it's they want to work on margin, we can bring that in. Whether it's that they're growing or if they're shrinking, right? Like if, for some reason they've lost a couple clients and they need to add some people in to take care of their existing clients, but they don't have the budget, and maybe it's temporary until they grow through and push through that. We can bring those people in there as well. So yeah, we started it, and we joke now. It's like our mission is to, if we can change the unemployment rate in South Africa by 1%, we've done our job. I think it's
Hey,
a
that's a
lofty goal, but
that's a big goal. That's awesome.
yeah. So, we want to help both sides. And then, we're meeting amazing people through this. We're doing tons of interviews every day to kind of build our pipe, make sure that we are in contact with a lot of different people out there in the tech space. And we're meeting some amazing individuals. And it's kind of shown me what's possible. I've seen people and met people that have more certifications and more experience than anyone else I've met in the industry in anywhere. Um, and they're great people with good personalities. So yeah, that's kind of why it's a long-winded way of why we started NetOps Africa. It started off as a test, and it was successful. And then we just keep building on that success and trying to help as many um, businesses around the country. We focus primarily on MSPs, right? Just like we've all worked in, because that's what Ramon and I know. But we've also helped some other businesses with placements and people, and we're a little different, right? We're not just going to place and walk away. We stay involved. We are the EOR, we're the employer of record.
Mm-hmm.
So we're checking in with not only the client, but also the placement on a cadence and making sure that everything is aligned, making sure that they're okay, talking them through any technical challenges they have. They're always able to reach out to us as well. And then talking them through what their careers look like, what's next for them, and leveraging some of our experience to show them a path, show them where that we think they should go, and talk through what makes sense for them and to play on their strengths.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's a great objective to be helping the country that you came from, and to really trying to make it a positive impact. So, bringing it down to a nutshell, what NetOps Africa is doing is staffing highly skilled workers that are just looking for an opportunity in South Africa with companies here in the US that is particularly managed service providers that generally operate with some uh, tighter margins. And so it's enabling those businesses as well to build out and provide better services with these highly skilled workers to other businesses within the US or even globally.
Yep, exactly.
That's awesome. So where do you guys find you're using your you know biggest strengths in this arrangement? Ramon, I want to toss it over to you. What is your primary function and role within NetOps Africa, and how do you feel it plays to your strengths?
Yeah, right. So right now, where my focus is primarily on finding more MSPs that fit our ideal customer profile. Trying to connect through relationships is really kind of the focus, and that's something that has been my bread and butter ever since I started working back in nursing homes, right, in healthcare. You get really familiar with all the doctors, the hospitals, the nursing staff all around the community, and you just especially in smaller towns like where we came from, you get to know everybody. You go to Target, Walmart, grocery store, and you run into people, run into family members, and I that's something that I really enjoyed in that industry. And when I shifted over to IT, it was kind of the same thing. I really enjoyed building the relationships with engineers on my team, really enjoyed building relationships with the clients, and it really meant a lot to be able to help them in the way that I could through IT. And now with NetOps, obviously, I mean, it's kind of half joke, half mission. If we can move the unemployment rate in South Africa by 1%, we'll have made a dent in something that really matters. And that's a really cool mission that I really I'm glad to wrap my arms around. And on that flip side, just working with MSPs that I've worked for so many years with, just those relationships and trying to figure out where they could use some help. Sometimes in conversations, we find that really their help isn't necessarily with the staffing; it's somewhere else. And we're happy to connect them with others that we know that have spun off into their own projects and own businesses that have a similar mission, kind of a soul behind it, if you will. It's about building teams, creating opportunity, and scaling with soul. If I were to sum it up, I really want to try to help everybody do that.
Nice. Scaling with soul. I love it. I love it. Shane, same question to you. What is the primary role that you're serving in for NetOps Africa right now, and how does it play to your strengths?
Yeah. So one of the things I do a lot is I'm talking to every single one of the placements, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just like over the years, bringing in good technical talent, good people, right? Surrounding myself with those good people. Um, so I'm trying to make sure that um, the talent that we bring in, the talent that's kind of sitting there in our pipe is, you know, has those good values. They have good personalities, right? That's important. Um, I'm I'm scoring them. Are they humble? Right? We go back to that again.
Mm-hmm.
I can't work with people that are arrogant. It doesn't fit in most places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, People that can adapt to situations. So my primary focus is building the relationships with the talent that we bring in, and honing that over time, and helping mentor some of them through certain things. I talk to them quite often. Um, as well as with Ramon, you know, building other relationships with MSPs. I think I'm on every call with every prospective client as well, just so we can build the relationship. And like he said, find what's right for them. Right, staffing might not be a fit for them. It might not be what they need right now. So we'll help partner them with other people that we know that we've learned from over the years. And you know, it's build a community, right? There's a massive MSP community out there, whether it's MSPs, whether it's vendors, whether it's people just that have a specialty. I know we know a fantastic person that does a lot of ConnectWise consulting, who's been a big part of all of our lives for a while.
Cassie's the
um,
best.
yeah, Cassie's awesome. And um, and then Jeanette as well is another one that I want to reach out, and Kyle Christensen, who's doing amazing things at Empath as well. Um, these have been influential people, and they've broken off doing other things within the MSP space as well. So we want to highlight them, and they're doing amazing work in different aspects of it. So it takes a village, right? Like we're all working together to be successful, and there's so many people out there that can help different MSPs and from different perspectives. So yeah, I'm gonna keep focusing on the people, right? That's to kind of bring it back. Um, and then my business partner Dale, he focuses a lot on the operations as well because that's one of my weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So again, what I've done here is partner with people that help me with my weaknesses.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You can see just in the makeup of NetOps Africa how you guys have built a team that you really are covering each other's weaknesses and playing to each other's strengths. And I mean, I think we have ample evidence to this point. I mean, even just from the stories we've said in the show that people are definitely one of your strengths, Shane. And I wouldn't be where I'm at without your help in those skill sets. So it's great that you're really leaning in there. Now, what does the next 6 to 12 months of NetOps Africa look like?
I don't think it looks too different from what we've been doing. Like realistically, right? We're just on the same mission to help as many MSPs as we can, where we can. So we're going to keep pushing on that. We're gonna push to probably double where we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
That's our stretch goal,
Hey,
and I
there you
think we
go.
can do it with some intention. So Ramon and I are committed, and so is Dale, to grow in it and to make sure we're placing people in the right places for
Nice.
long-term growth. We're not looking for, you know, short-term things. We're looking to place people in long-term that can grow with an organization, that can help that organization grow as well on the flip side. Um, yeah, we're going to continue to do that.
That's why I said scale with soul. I feel like some companies, some businesses, nothing wrong with it, but it's all about the growth at all, almost at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, obviously we want to grow, but we want to grow with soul. Like we want to help these MSPs. We've kind of been through a lot of the challenges and hurdles. And so that's why we're kind of focusing on a particular type of MSP right now, where we can come in and assist, um, help them, whether it's with helping their team with burnout or helping improve those margins. Um, like really, they've got to have their local people because they still need that local touch. Um, and it's not a separate outsourced company. It's not outsourcing. It's people who are going to be joining your team. These are
Mm-hmm.
people that are going to learn who who they serve. They're going to learn about that business's culture. And like Shane said, we're focused on long-term relationships. And we feel like by focusing on those, on building relationships ourselves, then that just trickles down. Everybody will be focused on that. We want to partner with others that are focused on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you had said there is, well, growth for the sake of growth. It's a really common model. It comes with plenty of sacrifices along the way. And maybe it's going to be different for every organization that utilizes this model. But what I've seen in the environments I've worked in that utilize that model is one of the first things to go is culture. Second thing to go is work life balance. And when you're really just going for growth, it may be a faster way to hit growth, but the sacrifices I feel are much greater. Whereas when you try to grow with soul and you're looking at the long term game, I mean, I could even say infinite game here if we're going to reference Simon Sinek again. Um, but when you're doing that, that helps you not only preserve your culture, preserve your values. You are still making a sacrifice. Like there are faster ways to grow, but in making that sacrifice, you are, in my opinion, choosing a more sustainable path of growth.
That's 100% it. I was gonna say I think Shane will agree, which is we kind of have like a two sides of the same mind sometimes. But rather than asking how big, how quick can we get, I think the questions that we ask ourselves are, how can we stay strong? How can we be sustainable? How aligned can we be with our um, partners? And I think that's the thing that drives us is that piece of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. It seems like you guys are really a client and employee focused company that is in it to benefit everyone that's involved. You're not really hitting the pavement in such a way where it is the one-sided growth or the one-sided opportunity for the business, but you're really keeping in mind those that you're taking care of, those that are in your charge, those your employees, as well as those that you're taking care of in your clients, and making sure that they have the right person in the right seat to get the work done that they need to get done, while enabling them to push their business forward as well. Now, this sounds great, and I'm really happy that you guys were able to come on the show today. Now, if people want to,
One other thing, sorry,
yeah,
I need to cut you off, Anthony.
no, go for it.
This reminds me of something, Ramon. You know where I'm going, right? So, Anthony, you've heard the word Ubuntu before, right?
Yes.
I know you know it as a Linux distribution, but you know the meaning of that word.
I don't.
Okay, so Ubuntu is a South African word. It translates roughly to "I am because we are." Right?
That's awesome.
By myself, I'm nothing. I become something because of all of us, and that's it. And so that's one of the philosophies at NetOps we strive for is Ubuntu. It's I am because we are. I'm nothing without all of you.
Mm-hmm. That's that really resonates with me, and it actually calls back to something that I've heard actually my current CEO say a couple of times, which is nobody's perfect, but a team can be. Kind of in that same vein. Um, I love that because that is us coming together as a team on a mission, a shared goal, a shared objective, and becoming something based on our collaboration, based on our teamwork and our leadership as well. Again, thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. If anyone wants to learn a little bit more, maybe they're a business that needs a little bit of help with staffing, needs some more skilled workers, but it doesn't have the margins to necessarily get there, maybe needs to let some load off of their team, essentially. Where can they learn a little bit more about NetOps?
Yeah, absolutely. So netopsafrica.com is a fantastic place. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn, Shane Betrix. And yeah, you can reach out to Ramon as well. Um,
Even if
Ramon
it's just a
Smith.
chat.
Yeah, let's just chat.
Yeah, it's always worth a conversation. I always like to say any connection is a good connection, and so it's always worth it just to have a chat. And quite honestly, these are two people that you want to have a chat with, especially if you're in tech. So, well, with that, thank you guys again. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week and tune in next week for our next pod. Thanks.
Appreciate it.